What's up, everybody? It's Jacob Barnhill here with the Barnhill team at eXp and another fellow eXp agent I have today. And we're actually not doing an interview. We're actually doing some live content coming at you live today. And we are here to talk to you guys about lead generation, conversion, and how to follow up like a pro. So without further ado, Peter with Revival Marketing is here to show us some best practices and tactics. Peter, how many leads would you say you and your team have generated for yourself and other agents over the last 12 months, just as a rough guess?
Let's say for ourselves, I mean, at least it's got to be somewhere within the 2,000 to 3,000 range, I would say, in the past 12 months. And then for all agents, oh man, I mean, we're probably got to say like 20. I want to say like 20 to 30,000. There's a good amount. I lose track after a certain amount, but it's a lot.
That's a lot, man. And I know you're going to get into some of this stuff today, but what's the biggest struggle that you see with seeing that many leads flow through? What's the biggest struggle that you see with agents with the leads?
It's follow up 100%. And I mean, especially as far as we'll get into a lot of that, but especially when I started, I thought that it was maybe like the quality of the leads. You hear all the time that, Facebook leads don't work, online leads don't work, they're bad quality, which there are a lot of bad quality leads, but there is so much potential in the pipeline you can build, but it's all about understanding the follow up. And a lot of agents they don't know how to do it, and they're not trained how to, and they're not, these aren't referral leads. So it's really all in the follow up is pretty much the biggest thing.
So where do you find the agents that are finding success? What's that follow-up system look like in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all consistency. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. Obviously, people have some crazy systems set up, and that definitely helps. But making sure that you're making those calls and setting up a nurture system for these leads and calling and checking in with them every single month. I mean, making sure, obviously, that you're making those calls until you can get a response. But the moment that, leads or agents stop just calling the leads, that's the biggest downfall I see. So nothing crazy. It's really just making sure you call that lead until you get a hold of them, and then calling every single month.
I feel like I'm missing something, man. It's that simple. Just that simple. I'm kidding. I'm being sarcastic.
There's a lot that goes into it, but in essence, that's one of the biggest things.
Cool. All right. Well, before you get started, give us a little background on you, and then let's dive into the presentation.
Absolutely. So I got into the just marketing sphere about, I think it's been almost 4 years ago at this point. As far as within real estate, partnered with JJ Spittler, who's my team leader, very well. I connected with him. I wasn't an agent at the time, but he was. And so we partnered together to start marketing, and then started working with hundreds and hundreds of agents, primarily kind of just within EXP. Got to support our EXP family, generating leads. And over the past couple of years have worked with, I kind of lose track between consultations and like actual like one-on-one, monthly kind of partnerships. It's got to be between like 400 to 500 agents worked over through that time period. And it's really just been helping, partnering with them and going, hey, how can we help you with lead generation, but also how can we help you with the follow-up, and have been running through that. And then earlier this year, JJ was like, look, man, you've been doing the marketing long enough, hop in and get your license. So got my license. I'm an agent now, and everything I'm doing, before the kind of cornerstone of what we set our principles on was everything we're doing, we've tested with JJ, but now I'm also in it, right? I'm making the calls, I'm generating the leads, I've got my own business. So that's kind of been everything up until now. And now it's just a lot of calls and a lot of follow-up. So we're having fun with it.
Cool, man. Well, I feel really fortunate that we have you on our team, our external team, helping us with everything. That I think is kind of unique. I would say that you guys have a company that's lead generating for agents, and you're actually making the calls, and you guys are testing things at the same time inside your own business. So that's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that was always kind of tough trying to, especially when I wasn't an agent, trying to tell people if they're telling me that the leads aren't good or something's going wrong. It's hard for me to really understand that. Now it was easier for JJ to, but now that I can actually get that, I've gotten that experience having calls. It's so much easier for me to go, okay, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I'm doing. You can do it too. Here's where maybe your pitfalls are. So a lot of good stuff in there.
Cool, man. Well, I'm ready. I know other people are excited too. Let's dive in, man. What you got?
Cool. Let me get into this. Yeah, let me know if it changes. This was a little bit of a background tab, but can you see this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. So I'll get into the follow-up in a sec, but just a brief look at the system for those that don't know what all goes into a Facebook ad. I know it's they've been out for a while, but some people have no idea kind of what it looks like. In essence, we've got this Facebook ad going. It's whether it's a homes list, which is usually what we see the best results with. You've got this homes list, you've got your ad copy, you've got your photo, and then if someone peeks through it on Facebook, they like it, they click on it, a lead form pops up. They can put in their first name, last name, email, and phone number. It's nice because a lot of it auto populates. It's all within Facebook, and then we use Zapier, separate kind of third-party program to connect it with our CRM, connect it with ISAs. Super handy for making sure that all that's pretty much streamlined, right? They're getting hit with drip campaigns immediately. So having that is really one of the biggest pieces to making sure everything's kind of set up and flowing. But as far as that goes, if you don't know how Facebook ads work, that's pretty much them in a nutshell. Now getting on to some of the fun stuff. As far as kind of bullet points, what we're looking at is really going to be success versus wasted money. I've talked to so many agents and really getting a feel for who sees success and then who just goes by the wayside, spends the money and doesn't see anything from it. One of the biggest things is not having the right expectations, understanding the mindset. These are Facebook leads. These are not referrals. And I'll get into these each as we move into the presentation, but some kind of quick bullet points. So making sure you have the right mindset. I would say 95% of agents that don't see success comes through this poor follow-up system kind of section, not responding to leads fast enough, not making enough calls. That's a big one. And then these two, if you drop a lead after a month of follow-up, that's obviously a big no-no because some of these people can take months and months to convert, as well as not following up with leads periodically. This is one that we kind of just recently found the hurt in, but have corrected that. And it's been a huge shift in just the response rate that we're getting and actually having people start to flow into the system a lot more.
Cool, man. So I want to point something out right there. Like one of the things I tell agents too, and hopefully I'm not stealing some of your thunder here.
No, please.
I tell them, you got to remember on the ad part and having the proper expectations. And when you said they're not referrals, they're leads. They're looking at a lot of times shopping and looking at home value ads. And I'm curious, like, why aren't you guys running hire an agent ad? Do you think it would work? Like hire an agent? It probably wouldn't work is my point, right? Because no one's looking to hire an agent. They're looking for that value piece. That agent that gets the business that just calls them is that one that has that massive exposure. They have that big brand, right? And if you don't have that, it's going to be really hard to run a hire an agent ad. So setting the proper mindset for people, I remind my guys, like, look, these aren't hire an agent ad. This is a home value ad and I want to look at properties online ad, and you have to treat it as such. Make sure that you're talking about what they want to talk about and what they're interested in.
Absolutely. No, and that's the biggest thing. It's you look at it and like you can compare it to a lot of real life situations. If you walk into, like a sporting goods store and you're looking at shoes, I'm sure 99% of us have had this, this experience, maybe not nowadays with Amazon, I don't know, but you walk into a store and if someone comes up and there's different levels of, if you walk in and you just want to look, sometimes you just want to look and like that's totally fine. And if they're there when you need them, at the checkout counter or kind of around, perfect, great. That's what they'll get that business if they're around when you want to do something. But if they're constantly bugging you and saying, hey, look at these, when you're just kind of just browsing, it's really off-putting. So people will just immediately bounce. So yeah, absolutely. It's huge as far as understanding that kind of shift.
Cool, man. Keep rolling. This is good stuff.
Love it. Okay, so this one does get a little bit more into the mindset. One, you are not cold calling, so they did reach out to you. That was one thing where I was always, I wasn't the biggest cold caller at first. Like I didn't, just wasn't my personality. And so making these calls at first was kind of tough until you realize like they're putting in their information. So sure, yeah, they are browsing, but they did put in their information. They could go onto Zillow and get this information for free. So like they did take that extra step to kind of go there. But these leads did not come to Facebook to buy or sell, right? They didn't come onto Zillow and say, let me talk to an agent. They were scrolling through, looking at social media, whether it was in line at the coffee shop, in home, in bed at like 11 o'clock at night, and just scrolling through and went, oh yeah, okay, this looks kind of interesting. Like obviously we've got a good ad copy, so they're going to want to click on it.
Right.
And they come through, but they're not referrals. So they are going to take a while. They're going to take probably, 1, 3, 6 months to convert because they're probably just browsing. And at this point, they've probably been called by multiple agents. If they're putting their information in on your ad, chances are they're putting it in on a lot of others. They've got no reason to trust you, right? You are a person on the phone. I know you're a human being, but to them, and you'll experience it sometimes, they see you as somebody. It's a spam call that you're getting a spam call essentially from their point of view at the beginning. So nurturing that and kind of building that trust factor is going to be huge, and just being there as someone to provide value and expertise. One thing as well, you may need to remind them they clicked on your post. I have this happen way too often where people have no idea what I'm talking about. And it's usually a little bit different. If you can catch them in the first like 5 to 30 minutes, great, you're probably fine. But sometimes, if you've got work, if you have part-time work, or you're out doing showings all day and then you're making your calls in the evening, which is sometimes, again, what you have to do. You got to follow your schedule. They may have no idea. So just walking them through that is totally understandable. And then, number one goal is just get whatever they're looking to buy, get that criteria, or if they're looking to sell, get as much information as you can to get them a CMA. The biggest piece is value. If you can get them value, you can be that person that's there to help. I have people thank me for reaching out to them just because they obviously want some kind of help, but they don't want to be pushed into doing it, but they just want as much information as possible to know that they're moving in the right direction. And I don't know if you see that, as far as when I know you've done a ton of these calls as well, but tell me a little bit more about that experience too, like just how different it is than calling a referral lead or a sphere or something that's a little bit more hot.
Right. Yeah, totally. It's the exact same thing for us.
Yeah. So it's just kind of understanding that it's going to take a little bit longer. It's a little bit different, but it's, again, something where if you can handle this in the right way, it's completely scalable. So that's really nice as far as understanding the mindset there. The follow-up flow real quick, at least for what it looks like in our system and with a lot of the agents that we work with. So once you had to go into Zapier, lead info gets shot over into a CRM. If you don't have anything like this, obviously I would greatly recommend it. If you're in EXP, you've got KV Core, but 3 kind of main places that have things get set up into. 1, a sales pipeline. So making sure you organize your leads. I'll go over kind of how we organize ours. That's been huge. A drip campaign. Calls are going to be the biggest way to get a hold of people, but you do want those texts and emails so that when you do call them and your voice comes through, they're like, okay, yeah, I saw a text from this person. So there's still some kind of validity in that recurring name just popping up in the top of their mind. Because some people don't respond by call, or you can get a hold of them by text, but then when you are finally able to call them, you can refer back to that text message that you had talked with them. And some people, they'll just go over their home criteria over text, and that's totally fine. And you can start to send things over. But making sure you have that in place is absolutely crucial. And then go into the call schedule a little bit more as far as the follow-up flow goes, making sure you're making those calls. I'm going to go over what that looks like. So we'll hop into this next pipeline. As far as the organization system goes, this was a big shift for us. As far as I'm a visual person, so I need to be able to see things lined up. And if you just have all your leads in a database and you have to scroll through like each and every one individually, you're going to get lost after, you can handle it for 10 to 20 leads. But if you've got 50, 100, 200, 500, 1,000 leads, there's no way your leads are dropping left and right. It's not going to happen. So what I do, and this is something we have within our own CRM, but if you do want to set something up like this, you can do it within Google Sheets. Super easy to do. But basically, you just want to make sure you have everything lined up. So wherever that lead is at in the nurture process, you want to make sure you have that lined up so that nobody slips through, right? So if someone needs to get a hold of, they're a new lead, great, have them in that first column. I won't go through each and every single one, but I will go through some of the most important ones. I would say, in my opinion, are this needs to be called to figure out where they're at. A lot of the times when I talk to these Facebook leads, I'll go, okay, great. If you're 1 to 6 months out, great. I can send you homes in the meantime. Perfect. Set up that rapport. They go into that 3 to 6 months or nurture program. And then start of every month, I move anyone who I've talked to who said they were X months out, or they said that this was the month or the time they want to be reached out to, into that needs to be called to figure out where they're at. And that's one of our biggest columns. It's got probably 80 to 100 leads in there that I'm going through kind of each and every day, just trying to reach out to and say, hey, how's it going? Just checking in. I know you said you were 6 months out. Do I still have that timeline correct? Getting those touches in, getting that rapport built in is going to be absolutely massive. And this is something I know Jacob and his team absolutely crush as far as organization goes, because they know that if you're not organized with everything, like people kind of fall through. So is there anything, as far as, I know yours looks a little bit different than mine, but as far as organization wise, that you recommend to folks that's like, hey, if you're going to start following up with leads, you need to have this in place?
Yeah, well, we were talking about that big branded agent before, right? And all that agent, the difference between that agent is you is that he owns mindshare or she owns mindshare, right? So we need to kind of battle against the mindshare, because it could be easy, even if you're following up in half the time, that someone could steal mindshare. So one of the things that we do, I try to keep it simple, is we set them up on a daily listing alert. We have daily listing alerts that go out. If they're a market report, more of like a home value lead, we'll send them a home value report every 2 weeks. And then our system, we can tell that they're looking at that. Now, we're not calling them and being like, oh, we see you're looking at the system and trying to be weird. You know what I mean? We're just like, okay, I might want to reach out to Mr. Smith a little earlier. He's really, upped his viewings on the site and hitting some favorites, and just as a good indicator for things. But what I like to do when we get a new relationship, we talk to someone that has agreed to at least follow up at some point. Is I have a 7-day, it's over 7 days that you touch them a total of 6 times. And you're starting to build that mind share. So it's not just 6 months from now, but I'm going to call you in 3 months. You might see a couple emails from me, right? So the plan looks like this. You made your initial call. That's one. Then there's a text that goes out, and it's all automated. Most of it's automated. There's a text that says, thank you for the call. We just sent you an email with our contact information. If you don't see it right away, go check your spam. And then there's the email with your contact information. And then you write a thank you card, and send that out to them same day or within 24 hours. Mm-hmm. Then they're getting listing alerts and market reports from there. And then 1 week from that time, you actually call them only to verify that they've received your information or the market report or some piece of value, to make sure that that email got through and that they got it and that timeline still looks good. And I even throw in, like, if you forgot to ask something, make yourself a note. So when you do that 7th day touch, that you can, like, I've talked to, seen, heard from Jacob 6-7 times in the first 7 days in a nice way, right? So I'm starting to build that mind share with them.
Absolutely. And you have to do that, because there's so many, like there's a lot of agents out there. Like, they could turn the corner and bump into another agent. Like, it's just, if you're not that person that's top of mind, they'll go with someone else every single time. Yeah. So no, I think that's awesome. And it's just what you have to have. It sounds like, listening to that, I know that's enough. I think that can sound like a lot to a lot of people, but it's what you have to do. And if you have that set in place, like you all have seen, like it pays dividends as far as getting those response rates up. Yeah.
If you don't, just think about what hits your feed across all apps in a 24-hour period, all the things that you get hit with. There you go. Like that's what you're up against.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you can combat it. There's ways to kind of set yourself up, but it has to be done correctly. Awesome. So real quick one here, as far as like responding to texts, something I see a lot of agents kind of fall into is they see that they get a text response and then they go, oh my gosh, okay, like guns blazing, like this person's ready to go, like I need to get a hold of them, they're ready to go right now, they responded to me. Nope, usually not at all the case unless they pretty much state that that's the case. Some of our first text is really just like, hey, I saw you were checking out a request for a homes list or CMA. Would you like me to send that to you? I can customize it. And then sometimes we like to do like a double text because it makes it look a little bit more personal.
Love
Like,
that.
oh, hey, I sent this one and oops, I forgot. Let me ask you this follow-up
Yep.
question. And really, when I'm first starting to text these leads, I'm going for three things. Because one, I know they will, and I've had it happen multiple times. They will ghost you like this if you try to like overload them with information. I try to keep it within like a single sentence. If they say yes, like in response to a homes list, which is usually a pretty short response, I go, okay, great. What areas are you looking in? And then get that information, and then step by step go, how many beds and baths are you looking for? What's your price range? And those are the kind of main three. I'll obviously, if you can push for more, please do push for more and get as much information as possible. But if you can get those three, that sets you up perfectly to now be able to send them value, right? My biggest thing is like, hey, how can I send you something that I can then reference when I call you? So when I call you, it's not, hey, I saw you were checking out homes and I'm bugging you now. It's, hey, I sent over some information based on our conversation. What did you think about that? So really kind of being that person that's there. And again, people appreciate that because you're just being there for them. They will convert eventually, but they don't want someone who's going to push them to buy every step of the way. It's I've had it happen multiple times. If you're there, if you're answering questions, if you're sending that value, they'll warm up to you. They start answering by name. But it's in these, kind of initial text messages, because some people, again, might be at work or in a situation where they can't answer a call. And this is how they'll kind of start out that process. So text is a great one. And even as an example with this gal, and those are an actual text message we sent out to a lead, and she responded by text. I got some basic information, didn't respond for another 20 calls, and then finally got a hold of her, and they actually converted and bought a home with JJ earlier this year. So
how many calls?
It was 20. It was 20 over like a month and a half or 2 month period. So it was a lot, but
good job.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, and they even, and as an example for some of you, like that seems like a lot. And I was kind of worried, like, oh gosh, like, am I bugging them too much? But at the end, when they responded, she was like, thank you so much. Sorry, I've been seeing your calls. Like, I've just been busy. Like, we've been going through the pre-approval process and we're just waiting for that to go through. So they saw my calls. They knew stuff was coming through and they knew who it was, but they were just waiting. So you just have to kind of keep pressing.
Yeah. Cool, man. That's awesome. Love it.
Perfect. As far as our call schedule, just kind of briefly going over what we've got. We do week one, when they first come in, 5 calls, try to hit them at least 5 times in that first week. I usually do about like an hour of calls a day. So like 5 calls. So just trying to hit them the day they came in as soon as possible, and then hitting them every day after, mixing it up between weekday in the evening, weekday in the morning, weekday in the afternoon, if you can. Again, I know some people's schedules don't allow for that, but if you can switch that up, that's going to give you the best opportunity to catch them at a time when they might be available. We've got those 4 texts that go out in the first 2 days, and that's kind of that first 1-2 punch we did, where we had that first text go out, and then maybe a minute or two later, oh, I forgot, or also XYZ information is what we're requesting. Usually 6 for the total for the week. Priority in that kind of first week, in that first call, get them value, see how you can help. Like I said before, most likely just starting out their search. So if you can get a hold of them, just being there to help them, not giving any hard kind of ultimatums as far as if they're looking to buy or not, because that pushes them away. It's just, hey, I saw you were looking at this. Is that what you're looking for? They'll usually go into their situation and explain it. Pretty good amount from there.
Yeah, a 2-step touch or a 2-step nurture could work really well. You know what I mean? If you're highly skilled, you might be able to convert stuff from the phone. Most are not, but a 2-step, doing exactly what you're talking about, and you just give them straight value nail on the head conversation of what they responded to from that ad offering value. And
Yeah.
then when you call them later, you could firm some things up. You know what I mean? So it's good.
Yeah, it's just, and it's all about, yeah, that, like you were saying, like that mind share. Like if as long as you're there and you were that person they're talking to, their go-to contact, that's all you can do at a certain point. You can't force the meetup. So you're just kind of hitting those touches as much as you can. Within month 1 to 3, I'm still hitting everyone. Again, this is if I haven't got a hold of them, or this is even if they've, they said reach out to me in a couple months, and then I'm reaching out 1 month later to just kind of check in real quick. I'm still hitting them with about, if they don't respond, I'm hitting them about 3 times per week, just until I get that response rate to say, hey, just wanted to check in. Still doing about an hour of calls a day. But if people haven't responded, usually maybe hitting them about 2 to 3 times per week. Usually like 16 texts over a 3-month period, plus another like 10 if they did respond. Having that separate drip campaign, because sometimes if it stops your drip campaign because they responded once and then they don't respond again, they responded by text once. So maybe trying to hit that avenue again can be really valuable. So having a separate drip campaign for that, especially with these calls, if you've gotten a hold of them. Biggest thing, like again, I know I keep repeating it, but just trying to hammer it in as much as I can. Like send a Homes Lister CMA. It's all value focused. It's, hey, I sent this over. What did you think of it? Hey, I sent this over. Were you looking for just 3 beds in this area, or do you like the finishes? Whatever it is, just asking really, really simple, quick questions to kind of get what they're looking for and make sure that you're refining that search. So that again, when you are sending them homes and sending them 30 to 40 that they're not going to be interested in, you're really dialing into what they're looking for, and it's going to be more valuable when you send them stuff.
Love it.
Last thing, this is, as far as the call schedule goes, this is the absolute most important one, is that past 3 months point. So this is where 90% of the money is with what we found for Facebook ads. So when you have this pipeline, you've got, it's easy within like the first 1, 2, 3 months to go, okay, like I got like a solid database. But once you get past that and you've got a couple hundred leads, checking your pipeline at the start of each month, like I said, that 3 to 6 months of that nurture, you have to be checking that and going through and reaching out to those people. Don't wait to call them until they say to call them. I've had that happen way too many times. And no matter how many times you think that it's not going to matter, it's always going to matter, because they'll convert. And if you aren't, if you're not plastered on a billboard right outside their home, then chances are they might go with someone else. So don't wait that 6 months. If they said 6 months, if they said a year, even if they said until prices change, until interest rates change, life situations can change like that. And when they do, you have to be there, or they'll convert without you. So making sure you're checking in with your pipeline every single month is going to be massive. It might seem like a lot, but people will start to appreciate it. They'll start answering you by name, and then you're going to start building your pipeline and actually developing solid business off of these leads. So that's absolutely crucial for the follow-up.
Good. Perfect. I got a question.
Yeah.
What do you think is where are we going to see roughly? I just want to kind of get your idea on this, because you've seen a lot of the pipelines and they build up. How many future follow-ups? Like, and we're not talking about recurring tasks or anything that's compiled on specific leads. Like how many people would I have in a future follow-up where I'm starting to pop 1 to 2 transactions per month? How many people would I have in my future buckets? Do you have an idea what that would be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say when you're getting into that, man, it doesn't seem like but like even in like that 20 to 30 range, I would say 10, 20, 30, as that starts to build up and you have that future follow-up, that's where you're starting to get people kind of popping through, but it's just making sure you're staying on top. People's situations can change, stuff can fall through. But once you get to that 20 to 30, that's when things start to get a little bit more consistent as far as people coming through, because people may have, I'm trying to look at, like, as an example, we had, what was it, for our 2020, the leads that we generated in 2020, I'd gone back through and then started calling in like 2021. And I would say, I think the number was 20 deals that had closed without us, because we I followed up with them when they wanted to be followed up with. So that's about that 1 to 2 a month range, where people are like, hey, reach out to me in 3 months. I reached out in 3 months. They closed a month earlier. Reached out and they were waiting for prices to lower, and I checked in maybe once every 6 months. Not enough. Not going to do it. So I would say within that 20 to 30 is when you can start to see stuff kind of ramp up. But then once you get into that 50, 100, if you're consistently making those calls, which is a lot, but if you can make those, that's where that 1 to 2 a month is probably going to start to kind of roll through, because you've got such a large amount of people that somebody's going to fall through and start to go through the buying process. So usually 20 to 30 is when you start to see stuff kind of gain momentum, and then that 50 to 100 is when stuff should start consistently kind of coming through as far as leads go.
Cool. I've been telling my guys, get it to 150 minimum. Get it up to 150.
Yeah. One, if you had it at 150, I mean, there's no way, if 150 people had came in somewhat interested in buying a home, and then you're following up with them, someone's gonna, if you're doing that every single month, there's no way someone doesn't slip through and is ready to go. So it's like, but it's just, you have to be there and have to be consistent with it.
Yeah, totally. Cool, man.
Absolutely. Love it. Well, as far as some quick stuff on the initial call, one of the biggest things I'll say for the conversation start, I won't go through everything super in detail, but one of the things here that I have started changing, as far as like my call list goes, is, hey, so saw you checking out homes on our site in the, let's say, Columbus area. Are you just looking in that area, or were you interested in any others, or anywhere specifically in Columbia? The biggest thing with that is I used to ask, are you still looking for a home? Not a good question, because that's an easy cop out for them to go, nope, see ya. And then they're done. They don't have to deal with an uncomfortable conversation. But asking something along the lines of, are you just looking in this area? It's not an easy question to go, well, I guess if they say I wasn't looking for a home, they have to think for a sec. They can't just go, no, I'm looking for a home. I don't want to talk to anyone. They can kind of either go into their situation, or if they're really not interested, which can obviously happen, then you don't have to let them have that easy out of the conversation. As far as that goes.
Questions you ask matter.
They really do. If you give them that, there's certain questions you can ask, and if you give them some kind of cop out or an ability to not have to deal with what is to them sometimes an uncomfortable conversation, they'll take it. They don't want to be in that situation. So if you can phrase it in just the right way, it helps you come from a value standpoint and really allows that change to start happening. Another thing too for conversation starter, this is for the nurture. So this one I do as like, if you're calling that 1 to 3 month plus database. Also, sorry if there's any barking you can hear from the back.
Very good.
If you have this conversation, you're calling them, it's pretty simple. It's a really easy call to make. And it's just, hey, we spoke a few months back. How are you? Great. Just wanted to check in. I know last time we talked, you had mentioned X situation, whatever it is that you were all waiting for something, you were holding off until X timeline, referencing that conversation to one build that, okay, yeah, hey, we've talked before. And then, hey, just wanted to confirm that I still had that right. If you do that, they'll explain their situation from there. You don't have to do much more than that. It's just, hey, I just want to make sure if there's anything I can do to help, I'm here for it. Do I still have this right? Boom, you're set to go. If you have that conversation, you're doing that once a month. They'll start to answer by name. You'll have everything still kind of dialed in. And this is a big one. Even if they say, like, I'll call you, they're not going to remember that in a month. And chances are 99% of the time, they don't call us back. So it might be kind of uncomfortable, but like you have to call them again. And if they really remember it 1 month on, then I guess kudos to them, but they usually don't most of the time. So making sure you're thinking through that is going to be huge.
Nothing's stopping you from texting them too, like halfway through and being like, hey, I remember we were going to touch base in a month. I'm looking forward to it. Just wanted to make sure you knew I was thinking of you. We've got some piece of value I just sent over to you. Let me know how you like it. And then if you don't hear from them in a month, I'll follow up like a month in a day or something like that. And then kind of politely make them wrong. Like, hey, I remember we were going to touch base in a month. You said you'd call me. I haven't heard from you yet, but no worries. Don't want you to feel bad about that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's just, I mean, that's no, but that's the kind of conversations you need to have. Like, it sounds like someone, that's close to a conversation you have with like a friend or colleague, which is what you need to be building up to that kind of point to be at. And so when you talk like that, it makes it sound like, oh, okay, like he really was kind of waiting for my call. This is a little bit more serious, and this person really wants to help me. Cool.
Yeah, because
like,
they don't know if you're serious either, right? You don't
Yeah.
know if they're serious. They don't know if you're serious. And, you know, we're a commodity at the end of the day, technically, until you start showing up different than the commodity that everyone else is, you know?
Absolutely. No, yeah, they could be like, okay, it's just some random person. They'll stop calling me after a little bit and I'll be fine. But if they see you're serious, they go, well, they want someone like that working for them. At the end of the day, they want someone who's going to be diligent, who's going to be ruthless in the follow-up on their side.
I use that as a script, dude. I've used that. Like if people are like, you know, man, I'm just not ready yet. Or they're like, kind of, you could tell they're a little annoyed or something. I'm like, look, I'll get that reasonable tone going. I'm like, look, if it's not the right time, I definitely don't want to pester you. But the amount of follow-up and the way that the positive pressure I'm coming into your world is exactly how I'm going to be when we're working together and how I help people find homes and get great prices. When would be the best time to follow up? Yeah. Tell them, just shoot them straight.
Moneyline. If you didn't catch that, I don't know. I mean, I wish I had that written down somewhere. That was perfect. I mean, that's the line right there. That is okay. Good. If you didn't really pay attention to that, please go back and listen to that again, because that's the line right there. Like if you use that, I can guarantee that's a money line right there. So yeah, please use that. Write that down. Someone write that down, because that's
just to shoot them straight, man. And like I had a coach one time that taught me how to be that way with people, because they will keep kind of messing with you sometimes because they just don't know. But if you tell them like, look, man, like I don't want to bug you. Even if you don't want to buy, can you be honest with me? Just tell me. But I'll be honest with you. Can I be honest with you? Yeah. I'm going to follow up with you if this is something that you actually want to do, because I want to take great care of you and not forget about you. When would be the best time to follow up? Shoot them straight.
That's huge. And I can guarantee I would say, 1 out of 10, but I don't think any other agent that's going to call them, if they're putting in information, no other agent is going to say that. None. They're going to say, hey, are you ready to buy yet? Hey, like, sorry, you're looking at home.
Qualified yet?
Yeah, exactly. No one else is going to do that. So if you can get that into a conversation, again, it just takes work. It takes that practice. But if you can get that down, it's going to massively change your follow-up. 100%. It won't go too deep here into questions, but again, it's if you can get as much information as possible, it's obviously ideal. Timeline is a really big thing. I would say based off of, whether it's buy or sell, whatever it is, get that basic criteria and then get a timeline. If you can get a timeline, perfect. That sets you up to know when to follow up or have a general idea of when they'll probably do something, so that, you can press them. They say they're going to close in 3 months, do that 1 month check-in. You can kind of press maybe 2 to 3 times a week, but once it hits that 3-month period, you need to be hammering that phone until they answer, because that, okay, this was the approximate timeline they gave. So that's gonna be huge, as well as these other questions, making sure you're just kind of getting those in there. That's kind of the main, as far as the large bulk of everything. But as far as these last few bullet points, this is how not to lose 200K, because like I said, with that 2020 leads that followed up with in 2021, I did the math. I sat down. It was not fun doing that math to see how much we lost, but I think it had to be done, because it goes to show you just what is possible within Facebook. I went through all the leads that I talked to that we had generated and said, hey, yeah, reach out to me in X time period, or like, I'm waiting for prices to lower. And then I called back at another time and they had closed without us. And I felt like, okay, there's something we could have done here, bar, them having like a family friend agent or something like that. This did the math, and it was about $200,000 in commission lost. So this is not fun. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. So here's what I recommend to not have this happen. Biggest thing is calls. If you make calls, if you're there, if your script isn't great, there's obviously stuff that can fall through. But if you are there, if you are that person and you're approaching them with value, they'll close eventually. They just will. People's situations change. If you have a large enough database, like Jacob was saying too, if you have 150 people who you're following up with on that month-to-month basis, because they said follow up at a certain point, Someone's going to close, but you have to be there. That is the biggest spot. I've done calls for us. I've done calls for other agents. I had another agent who I called, worked with us for a year and didn't do too much of the follow-up. And I went through and called their database and their leads, 15 deals. Now, not every single person in there probably would have closed with them. There's stuff that happens, but you can imagine at least 7 to 8. And if an extra 7 to 8 deals would help you, which for a lot of agents and especially new agents, that's
an investment property or pay for a couple vacations.
Right. I mean, that sets you up incredibly nice to not only do that, but also to scale and put more into the marketing. Like if it works for that, it can work in tandem with a larger budget. Call your database every month until they start answering with your name. That's been the biggest thing. It's been really cool as far as these leads that are 3-6 months out. As I started to call them every single month just to kind of check in, they start to answer you by name and they appreciate it, right? They go like, hey Peter, how's it going? Like, nope, still holding off. But thanks for checking in. And then boom, that's it. It's like a 1.5 to 2 minute conversation that could save you like $5,000. So it's really, really not a question at the end of the day. These leads do take nurturing. So these are not referral. These are not sphere leads. Most of the time they're doing their research. They're coming onto Facebook just to kind of check things out. It's you'll get a whole bag of different kinds of people in different situations, but most of the time they're going to take 3 to 12 months. As long as you're there, you can actually build that pipeline. It's not Zillow where you're going to get someone who's probably ready to go immediately. They went to Zillow, but again, too, if you only get 3 leads and all 3 of them are bust, that's kind of a bummer. Whereas with Facebook, they'll take a little longer, but you can generate a database of 2, 3, 5. I mean, Jake, I know you guys have a Pond account. How many people do you have in your account right now as far as total leads go?
Just over 3,000 in the Pond.
3,000. So if you
a ton of money in there.
And that's the thing, but you have an actual database and you're not cold calling, right? If you're an agent that hates cold calling, these people put in their information. So if that's the one thing that puts you off about making calls, start doing this and you can start out with a pretty low budget and get people into your system and start calling and build up that database, but you just have to set the right systems in place.
Yep.
Another thing, with that kind of warm call, cold call, people appreciate the follow-up. You are not bothering them. Like you are doing your job. They put in their information. You're checking in to see how you can help. And I guarantee you the uncomfortable call of being told to go away is a lot. It's nowhere near in comparison to calling them, knowing that you had called them, talked to them a couple months ago, and then them going, hey, sorry, I already bought a home. I've had that conversation way too many times and it sucks. So if you cannot have that, I mean, you're going to be set up way better.
I'll throw out a tip really quick. I teach my team this too. When you get those people, I like numbers a lot, if you can't tell. And I pay attention to the NAR statistics, National Association of Realtors, and they say over 70% of agents do not get reused by their client, right? Their past clients. So when I talk to someone that already bought or sold, I'm not having a conversation about it. Like, hey, I know you're not going to use your agent. No, I don't do that. I just put them back in my system. I actually archive them and I put them not in my, future buckets, if you will, anymore. Yeah. But I know if there's been no call in the last, we know everybody moves how many years? 3, 4, 5, right? I think it used to be 7. I think it's closer to 5 now. So every 5 years, I like to do early, like you were saying, because people will move early. So I think we set it at 5, 3, which is why I said 3 at first. So if we have had no call, we can filter for this in our CRM in the archive. Give them a call in 3 years. You have a future pipeline of leads right there. I mean, this is a long-term game. If you're in this for the long haul, you have all those leads that are now future sellers, and 70% of them or more are not going to reuse their agents. Staying in touch.
You have to. And again, that's the thing. You talk to like a lot of these leads that you might call that are looking to buy and sell. What do you think happened to their other agent? We've had multiple leads that worked with us because we were just better at follow-up than their other agents. That we didn't like push them to not work with them, but they worked with us. And we found out later that they had worked with an agent before or were working with an agent, but wasn't following up enough. So if you're there for the long term, you're going to set yourself up really, really nicely. And then the last thing is it's not always fun, right? These calls are not always, if you're just sitting there for an hour a day and you only get like a couple, hey, yeah, I'm still on the same timeline. Hey, it may not always be the most fun calls to make. Make it fun, make it a competition. Sometimes I'll have music playing if you're, making, we're with an EXP. So some of us are just working and making calls from home. I've got music playing in between each of my calls just to kind of keep some kind of rhythm
I do that
going,
too.
or I'll keep track of how many calls I make. If you want to make it a competition with your team to see who can make the most calls in a day, in a week, in a month, whatever it is, like add some kind of competition, or just make it enjoyable, because it can be a little bit draining. But once you,
Yeah.
especially, I would say, especially at first, once you haven't had a deal close from it, because you start to have that doubt creep in. That does it really work? Like, am I really going to get someone from this?
Normal.
Is completely understandable. Until you get that, it's hard to know that and visualize that and be in that situation. But once you do, it's game changing. So getting to that point is really just the biggest thing. So make it fun, make it a competition. But that's pretty much everything. Jacob, I don't know if you had any kind of extra questions or anything you wanted to add to this as far as like really kind of dominating your follow-up, but that's everything I had as far as bulk of the presentation goes.
No, that nails. I mean, a couple other small tips that I'll just throw out there. I just did a short reel on this the other day. Making sure you always have a future follow-up task, following up in half the time. But the other one is, I found in my follow-up, I would favor certain days. So I just look at the same week. If I know I'm on, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day I'm calling, and it's the first week, then I just set that follow-up. If it's not real specific, I'm talking long-term follow-up, like call me in 6 months. I'm going to call in half the time in 3. That way they don't get, piled up, because I found I would favor like Fridays a lot of times, and my Fridays are usually packed. I don't know why I did that, but I did. Right. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. So it kind of spreads them out nice and evenly when you do make your future follow-ups. And the other thing I'll say, I know there's a lot of people. I would love, if anybody wants referrals, just send them to me or Peter, and we'll call them for you. But it's so easy to call through the old leads. There's so many people out there that have old leads. And the script is super simple. I'll share it with you guys. I'm obviously a big script guy. And I just say, hey, John, it's Jacob. I know this is a call out of the blue. You previously registered on our website looking at listings. I'm curious if you're still interested in buying. And that's it. They're going to say yes or no. And I have a script. If they say no, I'm just like, cool. If it's not right now, I know not everybody's looking right now. When would be a good time to follow up? No, still no. Great. Well, would you be fine if I sent you my information? That way, if you're ready, whenever you're ready, you can reach out to me. And at least I have the opportunity on those calls to get an email, get some type of timeline, get them continue to talk to me. And I found that anybody I can teach that script to in the first couple of days, if I'm right behind them, over 50% of the people that they talk to, they get a future follow-up. If you get good at it, you're going to be higher, way over 50% of these old leads. And it's the same script. It's the same script over and over and over again. You can load up a list of 3,000 like we have and just plow through, just load them into your dialer or whatever you got. And you're putting a new person in your future pipeline. Then work that system where you touch them over 7 days, call them in 7, firm up the timeline or other things. You do that every day, man. Just like what you're saying. You're just building it up.
Yeah. And like it's not rocket science. It's the calls are pretty simple. Like getting over that uncomfortable hurdle, totally understand that. But if you can just make the calls, that's really it. It's not, there's no like secret sauce. It's just being there. It's just being there and putting in that work.
It's mastering the mundane. It almost feels like a workout sometimes. Like you just like starting off going to the gym, and then once you start going for a while, it's just kind of like music's in the background. You're kind of getting pumped up, and you're just like, yep, I'm going to hit my reps for the day. And then your job's done. An hour, your job's done for the day. You handle fires the rest of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you can find squeeze that in, you're going to be, doing that diligence, like try it over like a week period, and then you build that into a month. And it's just about staying consistent with it. Cause like you're saying, like at the gym, like if you want to get into good shape, like you have to be consistent with it, or it's not going to work.
100%, man. Dude, this was good. Is this the last slide?
This is, yeah. This is the last one.
This was so good, man. I've never actually done this before where we're like pinging back and forth on this topic like this. This is really cool, man. I had a lot of fun with this.
Thank you so much for having me on. No, I love going over this kind of thing because I think it's just, I mean, getting this out to as many agents as possible is, I think, pretty eye-opening for a lot of people. And it's just, yeah, being able to especially come from someone who has so much experience with, I mean, have loved working with you, and you have the best follow-up system, I think, that I've seen with any other agent I've worked with. So I love going back and forth with you on this kind of thing. And I know that a lot of people can get so much value from just kind of, whether it's some of this or especially some of those tips you gave. They were just perfect. So thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're going to do it again soon. We'll figure out some other content, I'm sure, and keep doing this stuff. I know you and I both have a ton of value to share around this topic. I think we could take each slide and go dive on it for an hour, I'm sure. So I'd love to do some more with you. And you got anything else before we sign off for today?
Make the calls, people. Make the calls. That's it. that's my one and done.
All right, cool, guys. Go out there, as I would say, take some action and just get after it. Imperfect action's the best thing. And like Peter says, just make the calls, man. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and reach out to Peter if you guys got any questions about EXP, KV Core. Use KV Core?
We use a mix of that and another CRM, but I've used it a good amount. I've got a good understanding.
Facebook ads, what Revival Marketing does, all that stuff. So reach out to Peter if you guys have any questions. And that's all I got. Everybody, peace out.